Today we're talking about just how bad the heat is here.
It's a scorcher.
It's like a chia pet.
Hey everyone, Dan and Leslie back for another video about moving to Orlando. Thanks so much for joining us again. We really love doing these, so if you're new to the channel, welcome. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you like what you see. If not, I guess thanks for stopping by. So we are a family of four that moved our kids from Tulsa, Oklahoma to Orlando to be closer to Disney World, and this channel is focused all about moving to Orlando and Disney and Universal and our family travels.
And we have our podcast, so if you enjoy us, you get even more of us on Addicted to the Mouse, which is published twice weekly on Sundays and Wednesdays.
Let's talk about the heat, because this is one thing that so many people are just down about. And honestly, like, if you hate the heat, don't move to a subtropical climate. We would much rather be hot than cold. And so we love the heat. Now, that being said, we like to stay out of it as much as humanly possible.
I mean, there's definitely the days that are just still, where there's no movement at all, and those are miserable. But the days where there's some kind of breeze, it's really not that bad.
I think the first thing that it's important to understand being in Orlando is just knowing what exactly it is that you're getting into when you move down here. Mm-hmm. You're gonna make me hot, aren't you?
Yeah.
So obviously Florida is a peninsula. It's surrounded by the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. And Orlando is in the center of that. We do get the humidity, and the humidity is what people really get up in arms about. For example, back in Tulsa, it is actually 10 degrees hotter than it is here today, but the humidity is so high that it feels just as hot here as it does there.
Yeah, so, and it also is not so great for the hair. However, I feel like it's been doing okay.
Yeah, I think your hair's gotten used to it.
Yeah, I think my hair has gotten used to it. The only days that it's not is whenever we get caught in a rainstorm and then it goes poof, like instantaneously.
Yeah, so number one, understand what the heat index is, and that is like basically what it feels like to you. Yeah. It is a combination of the ambient air temperature and also the humidity. And so the higher both of those, the harder it is for your body to cool itself. And so if it's 100% humidity and 100 degrees outside, it's not gonna be pleasant.
That's an inside day.
So know that coming down here, the lowest humidity months are going to be March into April in Orlando, and the highest humidity months are going to be August into September.
The next thing is you need to follow a good weatherman. So I always say that being a weatherman is like the safest job in the world, but you need to find one that is accurate most of the time. And that's not just for the heat and the temperature outside, but you're also following that weatherman for rainstorms, for lightning, for hurricanes, so that you can be up to speed on what is happening in your general area.
Yeah, we follow Dennis Phillips. He has a great Facebook presence. He's got like 400,000 followers on Facebook. I think he actually lives closer over to Tampa, but he's got some great information about the whole Central Florida region. So anytime storms are coming or everything, it's accurate for everyone.
Next is getting acclimated. We came in the winter here. I mean, and to be fair, there was one day that I got outside to take Jennings to school, and it was before our garage was emptied yet, and there was ice on my windshield, and I was not happy. Like, we came whenever it was the nicer, cooler months, and so we were able to kind of transition into the heat as it rose.
Yeah, I've heard it does take weeks to get acclimated to the Florida heat, like if you come in the summer. So it was nice to be in that transitionary period, but if you can't come until the summer, you're just gonna have to deal with it. But the key is to get acclimated. One way that we do that is we spend a lot of time outside. Now, we don't spend a lot of time in the sun outside, but we spend a lot of time outside. So we work from home, and we work on the back porch most of the time. So we have the ceiling fan going, but we're in the shade of the back porch.
One thing I would recommend if you do plan on spending a lot of time in your backyard area so that you're not fighting the bugs, having kind of that screen enclosure makes it really nice that you can just kind of enjoy that extra space without having to fight that.
Some of the changes that we made moving down here, again, it did get hot just like it is right now in Tulsa. So we did have high temperatures there. So we already had some clothes that were geared more towards the heat. In fact, I still wear long pants pretty much everywhere. Like,
so weird.
If you can get clothing that is light in color, that reflects light, because the sunlight is really your main enemy here. If you can get clothing that dries quickly, so if you sweat in it, that's going to evaporate and allow your skin to breathe a little bit. If you get caught in one of those rainstorms, you're not going, so like a thick cotton shirt is awful in Florida. But one thing that we did was we made sure that all of our clothing, most of our clothing, was in line with kind of those parameters.
I've definitely incorporated more tank tops into my wardrobe, more shorts. But you know, we also, whenever we were back in Oklahoma, we were working 9-to-5 jobs too. So it was a little bit different in that we needed to kind of beef up our casual wear as well.
Another thing that we did when we came down here was we had to get a new car anyway. We got rid of leather seats.
Yes, and I am so thankful for that, because anytime I do sit on a leather seat, it is sometimes painful because it's hot, you know, it's if it's a car and it's been out in the sun, then the seat's gonna be hot. If it's an inside seat, maybe it's like sticky. I mean, it's just not a pleasant thing.
Another thing that we did was change the set points on our air conditioning, and we actually raised the set points. So back in Oklahoma, we used to keep it at 72 during the day inside the air conditioning, and then we would lower it to 69 at night. Being here, being acclimated, being outside most of the day, we're able to actually raise those set points. So we keep it set on 75 during the day in the summer, and then we lower that to 72 at night to sleep in.
Everyone out there just cringed, because that sounds like it's hot, and I know a lot of our friends would just think that was just dreadful to sit in.
Like, I would never want to keep my house at 75 back in Oklahoma, but we also didn't spend all day every day outside and go run at 4:30 p.m. in the middle of July.
Right.
And like, I think that's really key, just to get acclimated. And so once you do that, you don't want to keep your house, at least I don't want to keep my house at like 68 throughout the day. I mean, you're going to be paying a fortune for electricity.
Well, and you're going to be freezing whenever you're inside. So you're going to
That's
be
the thing,
bundling up and then taking it all off.
When you go outside, like if we work for 2 hours and it's in the heat of the day and we come back in, even at 75, it feels cold
fantastic
in here. It feels great.
All that to say, is it really that bad? I'm gonna say no. I mean, really the worst times is if you are in the sun, standing still, out there on pavement. And so that's usually like whenever you're outdoors in a ride queue, that's brutal.
Yeah.
But it's not anything that we didn't experience before we came, or before we moved here, because we would come here on vacation in the summers and have to do that.
For me, it's not a question so much of temperature or even heat index when you factor in the humidity. It's a question of the sun.
Yeah.
So for me, being in Orlando, the worst part about the heat is the sun shining on your skin. Like, I can be same temperature and humidity in the shade, like under a tree, and if there's a little bit of breeze, it's lovely.
Yeah.
As soon as I step out from that tree and I'm in the sun, it is brutal. Like, it is hot in that Florida sun. I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess it's closer. The sun is closer because you're closer to the equator, I guess, coming from, Tulsa. But it's just being in the sun, that's what we temper a lot of.
Yeah, and I'll say, added on to being in the sun is that key point that you said, and that's if there's any kind of air movement, because if there's at least some movement of air, it makes it so much more tolerable than whenever it's just stagnant.
There are some pieces of advice, which is why we made this video in the first place, that just make us laugh. It's just funny what people say about the heat here. One of them is that the theme parks in summer are for tourists only, and all of the locals stay out of the theme parks and never go.
That's not true.
It's just not true.
Well, at least as far as we're concerned, like for me, I would much rather go in the dead heat of the summer, temper all of that with like bouncing in and out of air conditioning and some shade, and have less crowds to deal with. So
yeah, it's actually a fabulous time to go. You have far fewer crowds if you're going in the summer, because everybody else, it used to be a really busy time to go in the summer. When we first started coming to Disney back in like 2012, in July, it was a busy, busy time. But in the last few years, even before COVID, July into September, like those are the least crowded times. You just gotta know how to do it. Like you said, there are plenty of well air-conditioned places in these parks. So you spend a little time. If you have to wait in a ride queue, you ride your ride, and then maybe you go shopping, or maybe you grab a beverage or sit in a lounge for a little bit and relax and stay out of the sun.
Or maybe as a local, you're not going from park open to park closed. You might
That's key
go,
too.
in the morning for a couple of hours, and then whenever it starts getting really hot in the afternoon.
Yeah. The next thing is only be outside when you're going from your car to the air conditioned house. Like that's the only time you want to be outside. And that's funny. Like we came to Florida because we love the outdoors, and there's so many, you can be in the outdoors 12 months a year here. So I'm not sure why I would give that up just for 3 months, just because it's hot out there. Like you just have to acclimate.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't know what else to say. I mean, we spend a lot of time outside, so we might be the wrong people to ask about that. Then the last kind of funny thing to us is that you have to have AC in your car. I could understand this if you don't have a Jeep that you could take the top off, or a convertible or something like that. Maybe like I don't know that I would want to drive around in my vehicle with all the windows up in like a little heat box.
No.
But when we have the top off and we're driving around, we don't usually have the air conditioner on because we're getting so much breeze that it's comfortable.
Finally, we're going to talk about the ways that we combat the heat. We already talked about it's really not that awful. Yes, it is hot. Of course it's hot. We're not saying it's not, but it's not that bad when you mitigate it. And so the biggest way is through just being acclimated to it. And then when you do some of these things, it really doesn't make it that bad. So obviously you want to hydrate, you want to drink water a ton. So we're not the pinnacles of health, obviously, but we have coffee in the morning, and then we might have a drink or two at night, like a nightcap, but everything in between is water.
Also, we kind of mentioned it, but air conditioning is another way to kind of mitigate the heat, and that's just kind of having a good plan so you can bounce in and out of air conditioning, and then that kind of goes along with shade as well. So if you can find some good shady spots, then that really helps.
Another great way to mitigate that heat is pools. There are so many pools down here. Just jumping in the water and cooling off, it's a great way.
Kind of said it with air conditioning, but alternate going inside versus outside. So that's one way. And then just making sure that you have sunscreen and use it liberally. Don't be afraid to keep, reapplying as the day goes on, because that sun is vicious.
It'll creep up on you. The last thing that we'd like to mention is that in the summer, when it is hottest here, there are often rainstorms in the afternoons. Like the majority of the days in the summer are accompanied by a rain shower. And sometimes those can be like 10 minutes. It's usually kind of scattered around. Sometimes it's like a whole blanket of rain, but like we drove around with the top off a couple of days ago, and it was like we just drove around Disney property from our house, and it was sunny on one side of Disney property and pouring down rain on the other side of Disney property. We actually got wet, but that does cool things down. So the temperature will drop 10, 15 degrees when that rain blows through. Of course, it is humid when the rain blows through
and
afterwards.
Your hair will grow.
So if it blows through and then the sun comes out and heats things back up, it can get pretty sticky, but it does cool things down for a little bit.
Okay, so if you are looking to plan a vacation in the wonderful warm weather of Florida or anywhere else, to Universal, Disney destinations, cruise lines, or all-inclusives, please reach out to us at fantasticalvacations.com.
And we will see you on the next video.